Little Red's Adventures, a short story series by Jaidwing. Story 2, Gentleness of a Sister. Chapter 3. As the days passed on the long ride to the safe planet, Than-Guan taught as much as she could to keep the young Yotya occupied. She had him do some chores to keep him busy. When she couldn't think of a lesson, or some minor things that had been needing to get done, on the 12th day in the late morning, they finally arrived at their destination, a planet which she called Kli-007, or just Klitsch, before entering the planet's atmosphere. She strapped Little Red in and then herself. She turned the ship's autopilot off and steered the ship herself. She never trusted autopilot for landing, no matter how good the tech on the ship was. Once she landed safely in a clearing, she made sure the ship's cloaking was activated out of force of habit.
Little Red, you are going to need to listen to me carefully now, okay? To my every word. Even though this planet is safe, there are still many dangers that could be on it for a young unblood like you,
she said with a stern and motherly tone. He nodded. But the nod didn't satisfy her.
No nods, either a yes or a no, you understand?
Yes, Than-Guan,
he said with an urgency to please his sister. She took the restraints from his chair off of him and then gave him a respirator.
The air out there, we cannot breathe it for too long, so you will have to wear this.
She adjusted it to his face. After she adjusted it, he played around with the mask to try and make it comfortable to his face. Than-Guan put her biohelmet on and grabbed a few items. Placing them in a bag, she grabbed her combistic and put it on her side. She briefed Little Red about the planet before telling him to stay close to her. Once she opened the ship's door, it hissed from the gases exiting. Little Red was very excited to get the day started on this strange planet. Than-Guan had catalogued a lot of the plant life and animal species, and she knew where the animals liked to be. This area was where a lot of the small animals were. Not worthy enough for a good hunt, but they did taste delicious. Little Red clung to the cloth hanging down from her hip. His eyes were wide as he took everything in. She slowed down her brisk walking pace so he wouldn't have such a hard time keeping up. As his eyes wandered the terrain, she had looked down at him and put her hand on his head to give him a little pat.
this place is so different.
Little Red looked up at her. His small mandibles chittered under the respirator with excitement.
It is. I studied this planet and its life for many years. It is one of my favorite planets for how diverse the animal and plant life is. Though, there is no prey here that would be honorable enough for a hunt.
How many years have you spent here?
In total, about 28 years. And during those years I spent here, I was with another matriarch. She too loved to study things we do not pay much attention to. We had found many herbs here that are now used in our medicines.
Whoa, cool.
Little Red stopped when he heard the call of one of the strange animals. The scream of the animal was so loud that you could hear it echo off of the valley's hills. He stayed very close to Than-Guan.
What was that?
She saw he was a bit scared.
Sounded like one of the native birds. Their call may be chilling, but they are harmless. There is nothing to fear.
She reassured him with a soft tone. They kept walking until they reached a small creek. It was covered with water grass, reeds, large and small bushes and some small trees.
Look here.
She squared down to his level.
Tell me, what do you see?
He squinted and watched as the wind blew through the tall grass.
I just see a lot of plants.
Look harder. Tell me, what is over there by that large rock? The one by that bush.
She pointed and directed his attention to it. He fixed his gaze over in that area and then spotted something. A heat signature. A small heat signature.
I see something.
He exclaimed with excitement.
Shh, not so loud, or you'll scare it off.
She hushed him.
Describe it to me.
Small. It has big eyes and 3 legs.
He seemed a little confused as to why it had 3 legs. Than-Guan chuckled at his confusion.
Very good. Anything about the creature you find interesting?
She sat down, and so did he.
Why does it only have 3 legs?
Well, why do you think it has 3 legs?
She asked him to help him think. Little Red observed the creature before it jumped into the creek. He huffed. not being able to get a good look at it, but he tried to answer her question.
I think it was missing a leg.
He had observed.
It was.
She confirmed his observation. She then stood back up, and they kept walking. She guided his attention to certain places as they continued to walk. She was teaching him how to be observant. She told him that when he were to be on his first hunt, he would have to be very observant and vigilant. He became hungry as midday came and wanted to head back to the ship for food.
We aren't going to be going back to the ship anytime soon, Red.
Why? I'm hungry.
I know you're hungry. I'm gonna hunt for some food since we are far from the ship. Has Mama or your assigned teacher taught you about properly hunting for food?
She asked as she pulled out her kambistic.
No, not yet.
Well then, I shall teach you. Stay quiet as I show you what to do, okay?
He nodded. She began to track down a small herd of animals. They were short and podgy. These creatures grazed on the long grass out in an open field.
Do you see those creatures out in the field?
She whispered. Little Red replied with a nod.
When you hunt for food, you never pick out the strongest. You always pick out the weakest, injured or old to help strengthen and purify the species. Now, do you see the Ameta with a limp?
Little Red listened and nodded as she spoke. When his direction was put onto the herd, he had a hard time spotting the injured creature. But when he did spot it, he told her where it was.
Very good. That one shall be our next meal. Stay here and watch. I will be back.
Than-Guan went off to go hunt for the weak and injured creature. The tall grass made it easy for her to creep up to the herd. She stalked closer and closer until she was only a few feet away from her target. She leapt out from the tall grass and struck her kambistic into the creature's side, spooking the other creatures. They ran off after the injured one let out a bellowing scream of pain. Than-Guan quickly ended its suffering and motioned for her little charge to come over. Little Red made his way over to Than-Guan and watched her as she cut up the animal. He had to look away when she began to gut it though. The sound the flesh made, along with the sight, revolted him. Once Than-Guan was done cutting up the animal, she put the good pieces of meat on a thick cloth she laid out. She gathered the bones and laid them out on a separate cloth. She looked over to Little Red, who of which was still looking away.
Have you never seen someone gut and cut up an animal, Red? You know you can look now.
He turned to face her and didn't bother to answer her question.
It's gross.
He said with a slight whine to his tone, as he looked down at the cut-up pieces of meat.
It's life.
She wrapped up the meat and bones, slinging the makeshift bags over her shoulder.
Come, let's find a place to make camp before nightfall.
He sighed and followed her. She knew he hadn't been exposed to hunts before. Otherwise he wouldn't have turned away or made that comment. He would have to get used to it.
When you go on your first hunt, you will have to take shelter in high places or a place that has a lot of cover. You should never sleep in an open space or take rest in an open space.
Than-Guan told her brother as she made her way to a forested area.
Do you want to make a guess why you would have to take rest in a place with cover?
She looked back at the small red Yotya, who was having a hard time keeping up.
Is it so? The prey won't attack you when you're the most vulnerable,
he said between huffs. Than-Guan had to slow herself a bit so the little Yotya could catch up.
Yes, that's right.
Than-Guan found a spot in the forest area, of which she had been before. She recognized it by the large and crooked tree that stood out from the rest. She remembered it being the best tree she has ever slept in due to it having many large and flat branches.
We will camp here.
As soon as she finished her sentence, the little Yotya dramatically plopped down to the ground to rest. Than-Guan looked back to see Little Red on the ground, and she let out a chuckle.
Tired already?
She playfully teased. He was too tired to talk. Than-Guan picked the little Yotya up and brushed him off.
Help me collect some wood for a fire, and then you can rest up, okay?
She placed down the two makeshift bags by the large crooked tree, along with some of her other gear.
Do I have to? I'm really tired.
Little Red complained.
Yes, I hunted the food and the least you can do is help me collect the wood for the fire. And then after that, you can rest your little soft feet.
She teased him, and he huffed at the comment. They collected the wood for the fire and then Guan made a pit. She started the fire and cooked the chunks of meat over it. That animal had enough meat on it for at least 3 meals for a grown Yotya, so it was just enough for about 2 meals for both of them. By now, it was past midday, close to the evening. Then Guan only cooked half of the meat, and she gave a third of the cooked meat to Little Red. Once she was done cooking, she put out the fire and ate with her little brother. Poor Little Red passed out after he was finished with his meal. Then Guan called Black Mamba and gave her the recap for the day. Then Guan then grabbed Little Red and climbed up the crooked tree to lay for rest on one of the large branches. She knew it got really cold at night, so she kept her brother close and turned on her wire netting to keep the both of them warm. Every night ever since the dream she had about her little brother, she couldn't stop thinking about it. She had told no one about it yet either. She was considering talking to one of the clan's shaman about the dream when the trip was over with her little brother. But she felt like she needed someone to know about it sooner than later. It was eating at her. The dream just felt too real to be something that was made up by her deep inner thoughts. Everything felt too real, and that's what was really eating at her. She has never had such a vivid dream before. The feelings, the sights, even the smells. It was as clear as day in her memory. She sighed as she tried to loosen up her tense body without waking up Little Red. She doubted he would wake up with how quickly he passed out and how tired he had been. Midnight let out a yawn and got as comfortable as she could get. She closed her eyes and succumbed to slumber. Hey, I'm gonna be here for a while, so why not check out my social medias? Also, you may recognize my art. I'm Nomad's main artist. If you like my art, you can support me and my work. My commissions are always open, and you can find me in the Nomad clan server as Big Papa. Alright, time to head off. See you next time.